1, 9, 4, 3, dead.
Get in position and wait for my go.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Erkley and welcome to another edition of the PE Crime Blotter. We begin with crime headlines. The CHP announced Monday that the driver of the modified pickup truck that plowed into a group of students leaving Hemet High School was speeding at more than 50 miles per hour at the time of the crash. Their investigation also ruled out the possibility of brake failure. The case will be forwarded to the DA's office for consideration of criminal charges. Hemet School District officials said that one student remained hospitalized following a May 30th accident outside Hemet High School. San Bernardino police are dealing with a rise in homicides. 12 during the month of May, which is twice the city's combined total of slayings during May and June of last year. Criminology professor Stephen Tebbets of Cal State San Bernardino says, quote, homicides tend to have two peaks, one in the summer and one during the holidays. So maybe we're seeing a strong start to the summer, end quote. Last year, 30 people were slain in San Bernardino. With more than half the year to go, this year's total is at 21. The robbery and beating of a Moreno Valley pizza delivery driver may soon turn into a homicide investigation after a pizza delivery driver was declared brain dead over the weekend. Coroner's officials declared 36-year-old Patrick Casper deceased Saturday morning, June 2nd, because he's remained on life support in order to donate organs. Police said in a statement last week that Casper was attacked while delivering a pizza in the 22800 block of Adrian Avenue. Casper told police he was robbed by several unknown men while delivering $90 worth of food. A Menifee man accused of killing his neighbor's chihuahua with a golf club was in court on Friday, June 1st, for testimony from a witness who said the dog flew in the air when it was struck. 58-year-old Larry Edward Hariki, a retired school administrator, has pleaded not guilty to felony animal cruelty. Officials say in January, Hariki came out of his garage, walked into the street carrying a golf club, and struck the chihuahua for no apparent reason. The dog's injuries included a lacerated liver, a broken leg, and head trauma. It died the next morning at an animal hospital. James Lee Crummell, who was sentenced to death in Riverside County in 2004 for kidnapping, molesting, and murdering a 13-year-old boy, was found hanging in his death row cell in San Quentin State Prison. Crummell, who was 68, was pronounced dead at 4:20 p.m. Sunday, May 27th, according to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. He was the only occupant in his cell. And that does it for this week's crime headlines. Up next on the docket. It's now time for our On the Docket segment. We're taking a look at the big court cases here in Riverside and San Bernardino County. Joining me now is John Asbury from the Press Enterprise. John, our first case out of Hemet involves two men who say they were arrested for reading the Bible at the DMV.
Right, and these two men they're charged with misdemeanor counts, and police said that the two former pastors from Hemet Calvary Chapel were arrested not for what they were doing or even reading the Bible, but because they were demonstrating on state property. Now, authorities say that this is not a freedom of speech issue, that it's a matter of anybody demonstrating on state property, be it the DMV or the Capitol, must have a permit. And this case has been postponed repeatedly, pending an appeal by the state court, which was recently denied, and they're scheduled for arraignment again this week.
Next, staying in Hemet, we have a cold case from 1980.
Right, and Shelby Glenn Shamblin was arrested a couple of years ago after police connected him through DNA back to the 1980 homicide of his 67-year-old neighbor. Police said that as a teenager, he went into a woman's home where she was sexually assaulted and then strangled.
Then finally out in Corona, a doctor who previously was charged with 275 charges for prescription fraud, now back in court.
Sure. Lisa Barden was arrested back in 2009 for those false prescription charges, and upon her release, recently she had called in a prescription forged by a doctor and was busted when she went to pick it up. Now she faces charges on the new crimes.
All right, John, thanks for that report. That does it for this edition of On the Docket. Coming up next, John will be back with Most Wanted. It's now time for our Most Wanted segment. Joining us once again is Press Enterprise John Asbury. John, our first guy, Nicholas Contreras from Banning.
Right, Nicholas Contreras, he's accused of child molestation between 2006 and 2007. A girl who was 9 years old came forward and said that he had begun molesting her while he was giving music lessons in the back room of a music shop in Banning.
Our next guy, Raymond Johnson, wanted for crimes in both Lake Elsinore and Hemet.
Right, he's actually wanted on suspicion of two crimes. The first occurred in 2006 in Lake Elsinore, where police said he was one of a group of people who forced his way into a home, pistol whipped the owner, and stole their laptop computer and Xbox. And then about a year later, he's suspected in a drive-by shooting where he shot at a woman driving home in an alley in San Jacinto.
Then finally, Vicente Mendoza wanted for a crime in San Jacinto.
Right, and Mendoza, he is suspected of, he was outside a home with a group of men fighting, and the fight supposedly originated over financial matters when he pulled out a switchblade knife and sliced a man's stomach open, exposing his intestines, and then fled away on a bicycle.
That does it for this edition of Most Wanted. Coming up next, In Depth. It's now time for our In-Depth segment. We're taking a look at a story from Hemet. It happened last Wednesday. A student who's a junior at Hemet High School ran over a group of students out in front of the school. He said it was a technical problem involving the brakes, but since then, the CHP has cleared that from being an issue. CHP held a press conference in Beaumont today, and our Kevin Pearson was there. He joins us now on the phone from Hemet. Kevin, what's the latest?
The latest is the CHP says that Daniel Carrillo, who's 18, is expected to face charges, and those charges will be filed by the Riverside County District Attorney's Office most likely later this week. And one student is still in critical condition, though she is slowly improving.
And also, there were witnesses at the scene that said he was revving his engine right before the collision occurred, and now CHP is saying that he was driving at least 50 miles per hour.
Yeah, and they said that he was weaving through traffic, going at least 50, and went in the right turn lane, which was clear to avoid a number of cars, and that's when he ran into the students in the crosswalk as they were leaving school.
And I know it's early, but any kind of idea about what kind of charges he could possibly be facing?
The CHP didn't say. They said the DA's office is still looking at exactly what this would fall under, but the CHP did describe the charges as serious, and Carrillo had only had his license for 15 days prior to this crash.
All right, Kevin, thanks for the update, and be sure to keep us updated on the latest on this story as it develops. That does it for this edition of In Depth, and also wraps up this week's PE Crime Blotter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.